All right, here's a question where you're solving an equation, and it's in the solving the quadratic equation thing. So it's not really a quadratic equation, this is a cubic. But I guess to solve this, you do things that are similar when you factor some quadratic equations. At any rate, we use this hint as a say factor by grouping. So I'm going to group these two terms here, and I'm going to group these two. Turns out it doesn't matter which one you group. Oh, whoops, sorry. I'll just update that. That's funny. It doesn't matter which two. You could do these two and these two, or this one and this one. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so when you group, you take these two and look for what's common. So out of the first two, there'd be an x squared, and I'd be left with 7x plus 1. Remember, when you divide x squared by x squared, you get a 1. The next one, that negative out there, is something you have to worry about. If you can't factor anything out of both of these, you can always factor out of 1. If this is a minus, then it'd be a minus 1. Okay, so then I'm going to divide a negative 7x by negative 1. It'll give me a positive 7x. And I'll divide negative 1 by negative 1, and that'll give me a positive 1. Okay, equals 0. Now, some people, to do that, they actually go like this. They'll go minus 1 factored out, and then they'll write what's there, and they'll divide each of those by a negative 1. If that sort of helps you to do something like that, just so that you're going to get all those proper signs, feel free to do that. Now, when you factor by grouping, now I've got two terms. There's a term, and there's a term. Each one of them have a 7x plus 1. So I can do a further factoring. So I'm going to factor out a 7x plus 1 out of this term, and that would leave me with an x squared, right, because this one goes. If I factor this out of this one, I'm left with a minus 1 equals 0. So now I've got a linear factor, and this is a quadratic factor. This is a difference of squares, so I can separate it into x minus 1, x plus 1 equals 0. And this one I just leave as is. Now I have three linear factors. Now I can solve them according to the 0 property. If I have things that multiply together to give me 0, each one of them I can set each one of those to 0. So 7x plus 1 is 0, x minus 1 is 0, or x plus 1 is equal to 0. Here that gives me x equals 1, this one gives me x equals negative 1. Over here, if I take the 1 over, that'd be a negative 1. And then divide both sides by 7, I get negative 1/7. So those three numbers there are all solutions to that top equation. Okay, hopefully that helps.